Number 12 is in.
Welcome to Cover One, the podcast. I am Russell Brown, and alongside me, as always, the flag football 7-Eleven MVP, the burger eating champion, Brad Kelly. Brad, how we doing, man?
I'm excellent. I don't like that nickname, but I'm doing pretty well. You know, catching up on the ACC tournament right now, watching a little college ball. Got Notre Dame versus Virginia Tech. I'm a pretty big fan of Notre Dame's basketball team because their best player, Bonzie Colson, little known fact about him, he's two-time Rhode Island Player of the Year.
Why didn't he go to Rhode Island then?
Well, Notre Dame's a lot better. But he probably was a National Player of the Year candidate before getting injured. But yeah, I just want to throw a little Rhode Island fun fact out there.
Dude, you're not turning this into a Rhode Island State
podcast.
Yeah, we're not turning this into a Rhode Island Patriot podcast, man. Like, we can't do it.
It's also / college basketball.
That is true. The tournament's coming up, and Selection Sunday is on this Sunday. All right, who's going to be the 4 number 1 seeds? Because I don't know if we're going to have a shot to do another podcast between now and Sunday.
We're going to go Villanova.
Yes.
Virginia.
Boo.
Xavier after they win the Big East, and Michigan State.
Oh, don't put them in there. They're garbage, bro. Don't put them in there. Don't put the Michigan State Spartans in your top 4 for the one of the number 1 seeds. I'm going to go Villanova, Kansas, Xavier, and I'll take Virginia. That's fine.
They're probably the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. But moving forward, this is Cover One, the podcast, and this is episode number 49. Yes, 49. 48 was the other day. But we're talking a ton of stuff with the Seahawks trading away and basically blowing up the operation, and the Legion of Boom is just falling apart. And then the Rams are making some moves. And then we'll do some draft options for the 49ers, the Oakland Raiders, and the Miami Dolphins. But before we get into that, I need to let you know, Cover One, the podcast is brought to you by First Down Playbook. First Down Playbook is the number 1 playbook resource for football coaches with over 30,000 plays. First Down Playbook is a database of youth, high school, and flag football plays, color-coded with coaching points for every position on every play. Check it out today at firstdownplaybook.com. That's First Down Playbook, one place, all the football. So let's get into it. The Seahawks making news today, and they're changing things up. They're talking about Richard Sherman going out the door. And for a while, we've heard Michael Bennett's name being rumored as a trade candidate, and he is now officially traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. They will send Bennett and a 7th-round pick to Philly for a 5th-round selection and wide out Marcus Johnson. What are the initial reaction on this? And maybe we can kind of pinpoint some replacements for the Seattle Seahawks defense as they make these moves.
So definitely I think that it opens up a need for the Seahawks, especially with last year, the unfortunate accident that happened with Malik McDowell. He was a pretty high draft pick for them, and now they're going to have They have obvious needs at offensive line. Trying to protect Russell Wilson, and now it's looking like they're going to have needs at corner and edge rusher. And they have a pick at 18, but they don't pick again until 116. So they kind of have like 3 glaring needs, in my opinion. And they don't really have the draft capital to fill those needs. Yeah.
And I mean, and when you look at free agency, I mean, we're a week away from that, and on spotrac.com, they only have $14 million to spend and put things together. So finding some offensive linemen and finding replacements, it's going to be tough for them to do. I mean, yes, they have Dwayne Brown now, which I think, I going into the offseason, I kind of forgot they even acquired him last year, and hopefully he can be healthy for Russell Wilson. But realistically, finding depth for this offensive line and finding talent for it, it's going to be hard for them to do. And the only thing I can think of is that, they have Nazir Jones, who they drafted last year out of North Carolina. Maybe he's ready. Maybe he's in great shape. He was a player I liked a lot, but I don't know if he's going to be a great replacement behind Michael Bennett. And I get it. Michael Bennett, 32 years of age, if I remember correctly. And you get a guy that you're going to be saving around $5.5 million. Now that that this move is made. But I mean, what do they do as far as the draft? I'm looking at it, who they could draft potentially at 18th overall. I mean, do they look at somebody like Marcus Davenport if he's there? Do they look at potentially a defensive tackle? I mean, I don't know where they go.
Yeah, so I definitely think that an offensive lineman could be in play. And you mentioned Dwayne Brown, but maybe they could, take a guy like a Mike McGlinchey, and I think that would be a pretty good range for him. And he could be kind of a versatile guy. Maybe he starts off at right tackle, and then a year down the line he goes to the left, or kind of be like that versatile piece and fit in around what they already have. On top of that, I think edge rusher is definitely in play. A guy like Marcus Davenport. I don't think Harold Landry lasts until pick 18, but the thing about the edge class is, it's not exactly deep. And if they don't take an edge rusher at pick 18, they're not going to get one. You know what I mean? Pick 116, 116, guys are going to be gone. Sweat's going to be gone. Lorenzo Carter will be gone. Kimoko Torreira will be gone. I mean, Sam Hubbard's probably going to be gone. Like, who really is going to be left? Like, maybe Jeff Holland, but that's the stretch even then.
Yeah, maybe Chad Thomas, but I don't even think he'll be on the board. I know he's got some injuries to clear up, and he's not had a really good offseason. I mean, he looked sluggish a little bit. I thought so in Indy. He got hurt at the Senior Bowl. So, I mean, maybe he's there, but I don't know. Maybe they're making a move to go out and get Lorenzo Carter at 18. Maybe they saw that athletic ability, the size, and you're like, you know what? We're going to take a guy like this. Maybe that's the way they go at 18. As far as, Richard Sherman's stuff, do they potentially move on from him? It sounds like, they were going to cut him. Now it sounds like they're going to potentially find a trade partner for him. But regardless, it seems like he's out the door. Is cornerback a bigger need for them? I mean, what's going to be the bigger need, corner or defensive end?
Honestly, I think they're both pretty glaring. I think that as far as corner goes, in the immediate future, if they keep Earl Thomas, I think that could mask the cornerback situation a little bit more. And they still have Jeremy Lane, who I think is pretty good. So I think that edge rusher might be, I guess, the bigger need per se. But I think if you're going to trade Richard Sherman, you have to acquire draft picks for him because you are lacking those picks. I mean, but the fact that they have 18 and they'll pick again until 116, they got to get like at least a second rounder or multiple twos for him. But I think that corner could still be in play for them at 18. Just because edge is a bigger need, maybe they can get a guy in free agency and then look at corner at pick 18. A guy like Isaiah Oliver with his really long arms and his physical profile and his potential could really be a fit in their defense.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say edge rushers are bigger need too, especially with Cliff Averill being dinged up. He's getting older, and they still have Cam Chancellor. They still have, like you said, Earl Thomas. But I mean, then again, they've also made it clear that they could be shopping Earl Thomas as well. And I mean, you remember last year, he was all in the Cowboys locker room pretty much and telling Jerry Jones, come get me. So, I mean, I get it. He's a Cowboys fan. He grew up that way, and he probably wouldn't mind finishing his career off in Dallas. So that'll be interesting. This whole thing's going to be interesting. If they go cornerback at 18, what are some guys that you're thinking? Is it Denzel Ward? Is it Josh Jackson? Is it Jair Alexander?
I think in their system, and they're like bump and run there, you want a guy with length. I think Oliver projects as the best guy for them as far as their system goes. But, I mean, if Jair Alexander is there, he might be the superior athlete as far as speed goes. He could be an option. I think the cornerback class, is deep enough through the first 6 or 7 guys that whoever they pick is probably going to be a pretty good player. And even like a Josh Jackson, he's more of a zone guy, more so than man. But as far as him, Earl Thomas, at least for the next year, he's under contract, could definitely mask that as well. And then even on top of that, Bobby Wagner and Earl Thomas apparently had issue with each other in the off season. So if Earl Thomas is out the door, then maybe safety becomes a need, and then maybe safety's even in play at 18, or maybe they could trade up. I don't even know what they would give to trade up, but maybe they could try to find a guy like Derwin James if they can move up in the draft, or maybe find a guy like Jordan Whitehead later on. So they have a lot. It's looking like they're gonna have a lot of needs, and I hope that if they do trade these players away, if they do trade Sherman or if they trade Earl Thomas, that they get picks and load up on draft picks and young talent.
Yeah, they're going to need it. And I mean, I'm hoping the same thing with you because they're, they look like a team that with Russell Wilson, they could go as far as the Super Bowl. We've seen that numerous times, but it's at the same time, it's like, you have no protection for him. You're basically revamping your entire defense on the fly. You're trading away key pieces. You're clearing up cap space. You're getting the draft picks, hopefully, for these. So they're going to get younger, but that doesn't necessarily mean immediate success. So it'll be interesting. But another trade had happened today, and that is the Los Angeles Rams traded Alec Ogletree to the New York Giants. They also attached a 2019 seventh-round pick with this trade, and the Giants in return gave a 2018 fourth-round pick and a sixth-round pick to the Rams. So the Rams are stocking up on some draft picks. They're clearing out cap space. They got rid of Alec Ogletree. They're going to let Tremaine Johnson walk. Sounds like they're going to franchise tag LaMarcus Joyner. Sammy Watkins is gone. And, it seems like getting a long-term deal for Aaron Donald is the thing that's going to happen here, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, they need to lock him up right away. I think he's maybe the premier player in the NFL. I think he's the best defensive player in the league, or at least the second best defensive player. So I think they got to give him a long-term deal. They got to satisfy his needs. That's got to be their number one thing to focus on this offseason.
Yeah, without question. And with that, you get rid of, just a week before they got rid of Robert Griffin. So they're clearly clearing up the room. They've got $47 million in cap space, according to SpotRack.com. So with that, they are going to be on the clock later in the draft after the Seattle Seahawks, in fact, and they'll be on the clock at 23. Robert Quinn's gone. Ogletree's gone. You brought in Marcus Peters, but Tremaine Johnson's going to be gone. Sammy Watkins will be gone, and that leaves you with Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Josh Reynolds. And it sounds like Tavon Austin will be either traded or let go as well. So they're going to be do some revamping as well. What do they do at 23?
So they're another team. They don't have their second-round pick, so they pick at pick 23, and then they don't pick again until 87. So, again, if they pass on edge rusher at 23, we don't really know who will be there. Maybe a guy like Kamoko Toure or Dorrance Armstrong could be there at pick 87, and then they pick again at 98. They have the Giants pick. So it's one of those things that I think if they're going to focus on trying to get an edge rusher that, to replace Robert Quinn, that 23's got to be the spot if they don't get one in free agency.
Yeah, right now I would think Lorenzo Carter would be a pretty ideal fit. That's who I have them mocked to take right now. I just put out a pre-combine or a post-combine edition of my mock draft today, and Lorenzo Carter was the pick at 23. I just think with the way he blew up at the combine, I don't always put too much thought into the athletic numbers and the testing like that. I try to trust the tape. And Carter's got, a late second round grade, but realistically, that's a first round talent. He just played out of position a lot for Georgia. He was covering the slot. He was blitzing up the middle, standing up, hand in the dirt. If he goes to LA, he's going to have a consistent role. He'll be playing alongside Aaron Donald. I think that's going to be, or probably playing opposite of Aaron Donald, but that's going to be a dominant pairing in itself. And I think Carter, I wouldn't be surprised if at 23 Lorenzo Carter's name is called. But if they're potentially looking at linebacker, Leighton Vander Esch from Boise State could be a pick. Or we could be seeing Rashaan Evans out of Alabama. Which one of those two linebackers do you think realistically would be there at 23? Are they both there?
I think both of them could be there. A lot of teams have been mocking other linebackers to the Steelers. I think they picked 28th. So that could be a spot where a linebacker goes. And then I prefer Rashaan Evans to Leighton Vander Esch. But I think that, they might have the choice between the two of them as far as Roquan Smith going to go. Tremaine Edmonds will probably both be gone more likely than not. And then they might have the choice between the two of them. But as far as those four go, I don't think all four will last past Pittsburgh. So I think looking at least to the linebacker class, round two is kind of like Malik Jefferson or bust.
Right. Well, I like Malik. That'd be a pretty solid pick for them. But for me, 19, I got the Dallas Cowboys taking Rashaan Evans. And then at 25, I've got Leighton Vander Esch going to the Tennessee Titans. So, they have the money to re-sign Avery Williamson, but if he's let go, they need a linebacker. They've got Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel would like a guy like Leighton Vander Esch. So that'll be interesting. But we'll get into draft options with those teams down the road. And by that time, free agency will come through. And just real quick with the Giants, they get Alec Ogletree now. That's a $10 million cap hit for them. They're sitting around $13 million off of SpotRack.com. Again, it pretty much seems Justin Pugh is out the door. Weston Richburg out the door. This is a team that needs offensive line help. I mean, is this their way of pretty much saying, hey, we're taking Quentin Nelson at number 2? It's hard to speculate that, but I mean, that's what I'm getting out of it. You're adding more money to your cap, and against your roster, you don't have any offensive line help. And yes, you need a young quarterback, but at the same time, you're going to be passing on the most premier left guard in this class, and there is no guarantee when you're back on the clock eventually that Isaiah Wynn, Will Hernandez, these guys are going to be there. There's no guarantee those guys will be there.
That's fair, but I think that when it comes to the Giants, and Quentin Nelson's my number 1 player, so I obviously really like him. I think he's the safest prospect in the draft. I think that the drop-off from a guy like Josh Rosen or maybe a Sam Darnold or even a Baker Mayfield to who would be there at pick 34 or at pick 66 is like maybe Mason Rudolph. I think that drop-off is greater than the drop-off from Quentin Nelson to maybe Will Hernandez is there. I don't think Isaiah Wynn will be there, but maybe Hernandez is. And even if he's not, maybe McGlinchey or Connor Williams are there. And even if they're not, maybe at pick 66, a guy like Braden Smith out of Auburn is there. So I think that the drop-off at the quarterback position in this class from a guy who get at pick 2 compared to pick 34, pick 66 is greater than the drop-off at guard from a guy who get at 2 to pick 34 or pick 66.
Keep in mind, though, too, I mean, they do need a left tackle. I mean, Eric Flowers is no left tackle by any means. And if I'm not mistaken, they have to pay him next year. So there's going to have to be some decisions made on him. And, I mean, it just does not look good for this team. I mean, granted, they'll move on from Brandon Marshall eventually here. DRC will move on. And those two guys alone, that's $15 million in cap space. So, I mean, you clear up that, you could easily make some moves. But, yeah, you would have to pick up a bonus, or you'd have to pick up the 5th year with Eric Flowers, and then you would need to, put something together and get a left tackle down the line because, he's not your left tackle. But I feel like if you can't re-sign Justin Pugh, you're not getting Weston Richburg, you don't have a left tackle, you have just too many needs. And I get it. Getting a quarterback makes a lot of sense, but this team, I just see this team, the Giants, being just as bad. So it'll be interesting. But let's move forward from these trades. They were very important trades that happened today with Ogletree and Michael Bennett. And let's get to the draft options portion of the show. And we left off with the Chicago Bears. We got through that. And now we move on to the San Francisco 49ers, who are picking 9th overall. What's this team potentially going to do with the 9th overall pick?
So if I'm once again, we're going to go back to if I'm the coach of the Niners, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, what would I do? And I am trying to protect Jimmy Garoppolo at all costs. That is the number one thing I'm looking to do. Weapons is one thing. I think you can get better weapons later on in the draft or maybe even in free agency. So I'm looking to try to protect him. So if Quentin Nelson is there at 9, I sprint to the podium. I think that's a foregone conclusion. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, if Quentin Nelson drops out of the top 6, I'll say, I would be shocked. Yeah. I don't see, because how I see it, and I'm just going off of what my recent mock draft was from today, I have the Jets trading up to 3, the Colts trading back to 6. The Jets would go Rosen after the Giants took Barkley. The Browns go Bradley Chubb at 4. The Denver Broncos take Josh Allen, despite which I think I'm going off Ben Albright's tweet of Case Keenum being a likely candidate for Denver and Kirk Cousins being a likely candidate for Minnesota. So I still think Denver would take a shot at somebody like Josh Allen, who we all know he needs another year. So give him another year to get through everything, and maybe you have a starting quarterback that way with Denver. But then Indy at 6, I think Quentin Nelson's gone at that point, and I think that would be their pick with Quentin Nelson. So if it's me personally, I'm thinking, with San Francisco, maybe they go Roquan Smith, maybe Minkah Fitzpatrick if he's still on the board. Yeah,
so I think looking past their options as far as protecting Jimmy Garoppolo go, definitely, I think you got to go to the defensive side of the ball, and they have a need at linebacker, and they probably will have an option between Roquan Smith and Tremaine Edmonds. So it will kind of come down to probably which one of those two that they prefer. And then the scraps will be left over for the Raiders at pick 10. But look, I think that if there's no lineman available, that the linebacker, one of those two premier linebacker prospects will be their choice. and they'll look to protect and add weapons for Garoppolo later on in the draft.
Yeah, no doubt. And if we move forward from 9 with the 49ers, we move to 10 with the Oakland Raiders. And this is a team that you've been doing with the daily mock draft. And, I mean, you know this team, I think, probably better than anybody. You definitely know them better than I do. Where do they go? I mean, what do they do? John Gruden, new regime coming in. I mean, how do they approach this draft with the 10th overall pick?
So if the top 9 goes kind of as expected, they're definitely going to be looking at a few guys and the main guys that I mock to them are Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edmonds, Derwin James, and Vita Vea. Now, recently after the combine, I'm sold on Harold Landry, so Harold Landry could also be a selection for them, or could be an option for them. But I think ultimately it comes down to if Roquan Smith is there, or Edmonds is there. That is their number one option, or if not, maybe the other option that is in play is Derwin James, because they need a safety. He's versatile. He's a freak of nature. I think a guy like Gruden is just going to gush over Derwin James. Mm-hmm. You know, his intangibles, his on-field play, his athleticism. So I think that probably Edmonds or Derwin James. I think they definitely go defense. They need linemen, but I think linemen will be their line's getting a little bit older. I think that'll be a need later on. And I think they end up going James or Roquan Smith.
Yeah, I when I did my mock draft, and I constantly thought Harold Landry. I was sitting there and I'm like, you know what? We've heard about it. Khalil Mack needs something on the opposite side of him rushing the quarterback. And I'm like, well, Harold Landry, that's a home run all day. But I sit here and I consistently think about it. And I'm like, Vita Vea out of Washington, that's got to be the guy, in my opinion, because John Gruden is that type of guy that I feel would love the skill set of Vea. He's athletic. He ran a 5.1 40. I mean, you don't see that out of a guy that's measured in around 345 pounds, 6'4". He's powerful. He's athletic. He's versatile. That's the stuff that coaches drool over. I personally think if you put Vea on this offense or on this defensive line, you're going to get a ton of upside and a ton of value from him, and it'll trickle down to a player like Khalil Mack, because teams are going to start scheming against a player of his size, of his caliber. But I can't disagree with you. Harold Landry would be a great pick. Edmonds would be a great pick. I think Derwin James would be somewhat of a reach at 10. But let's say if a team was calling about a quarterback, and if there's a quarterback on the board, let's say Baker's there or Josh Allen, if one of those guys are there and let's say Buffalo moves up to there, I don't think Derwin James would be there at 21. But if they were to move down a little bit and they get an opportunity to take Derwin James, that makes a lot of sense. And then we got 11, the Miami Dolphins. Real quick with the Raiders. Yeah. Kind of the other positions that we mentioned. I think that they have in their second round pick, they have it's pick number 41. You know, it's pretty early as far as the second round goes. They have their third and their fourth round pick. I think that personally, we kind of touched on the edges, probably going to go earlier, but I think there will be some good edges there at pick 41. So if they do pass on Harold Landry, a guy like Uchenna Nwosu could be their 41, or Sam Hubbard, or even maybe Sweat or Lorenzo Carter last until pick 41. And on top of that, I think that defensive tackles a pretty deep class. Like Taven Bryan could be there. Nathan Shepard could be there. You know, I think there's other defensive tackles, and who knows about Maurice Hurst now? They could be there, and even so, looking past that too. And I think Malik Jefferson could be there if they pass on a linebacker. So I think, but when it comes down to safety, who's going to be there that's close to Derwin James in talent level? You know, there's Minka. If you view him as a safety, there's Derwin James, and then there's kind of like a lot of like meh at the safety position. Yeah, no, there's definitely that could be there at the top of the second round. I don't think so. Yeah, there's definitely some meh there. But, I mean, you've got Jesse Bates out of Wake Forest, Justin Reed out of Stanford. Those guys could potentially be there. I think Justin Reed goes at the end of the first round, I'll be honest. But, I mean, at that point, if you were to get Jesse Bates, I don't think there's that much meh there. I think there's some talent there. I see some upside there. So, I don't know. I mean, I think at 10 for Derwin James, I get the talent level is there. He tested great. But, I mean, he got better as the year went on this year, so I'll give him credit there. I don't have him as a top 10 player. I have Vea right outside the top 10, and I think he's a guy that you're not really reaching. I think there's great value there, and it's a guy that would instantly play for you and contribute in every aspect, from stopping the run and rushing the passer, where Derwin, you saw some of the flaws early in the year. I think we could see some of those flaws as he transitions into the NFL, but I could be wrong. So we'll see. But with 11, the Miami Dolphins, they're on the clock now. Where do they go? What direction? I personally think Tremaine Edmunds out of Virginia Tech is there, and if he's there, I think he's their guy.
Yes, I mean this is a team with a ton of needs. You know, they have needs in the secondary, so I mean they could even be a choice, a candidate to pick a guy like Derwin James. They could be a candidate to pick a corner if Denzel Ward's there. I mean and they need defensive line help. I mean they're kind of like, I mean they could take a quarterback. You know what I mean? Like they might trade Tannehill and be looking to take a quarterback, and like you said, maybe try to move up to one of the spots in the top 5 or the top 6 to take a guy like Baker Mayfield. So I think that the draft is really going to kind of get going with them because they could go so many different directions.
I mean, I disagree. I don't think the draft gets going with them. I think the draft gets going with Cleveland, who has the first overall pick.
You know what I mean?
No, I know what you're saying. No, I think the team that, and I've said this before, I think the teams that hold the key to the draft are at 2 and 3 with the Giants and the Colts, because you really don't know what direction they're going to go, and they have a ton of needs as well. But you're right, the Dolphins, they do have needs. I don't think they have as many needs up front on the defensive line simply because of Ndamukong Suh, Charles Harris, Cameron Wake. They just added Robert Quinn. And there's a ton of talent up front, but they could very well move on from Ndamukong Suh. They could potentially let go of Cameron Wake. I mean, he's due some money. I believe it's right around $8 or $9 million, and he's a veteran player. He's been around the league for a while, so they could be looking at potentially adding some depth in potential future starting talent to their defensive line, and that would make sense to look there. But Denzel Ward, Derwin James, they would be great fits. Again, though, with Chase Allen being your Mike linebacker right now, I can't trust that. I don't think that would be a smart move to continue to roll with that. I believe he only had like 45 tackles this past year. So when you bring in Edmonds, you got a guy that's 6'5". He ran a 4.55 40. He does a great job coming downhill. He scrapes over the top. He's a fluid athlete, and he's 19 years of age. So you can build him into the player that you want him to be. He's going to continue to grow, get stronger and faster. So there's only positives to his game. And I think that's the home run pick. And again, behind Chase Allen, you still got, Lawrence Timmons, who's on the wrong side of 30. So I think linebacker is their biggest need defensively. And if they go quarterback, I mean, you would have to think they're going to trade up to get Baker Mayfield. I mean, he just seems like the perfect fit for that offense.
Yeah, so first things first, I definitely forgot that they got Robert Quinn. Just to throw that out there, that I forgot that they acquired him. So as far as the D-line goes, it is pretty solidified as far as this upcoming season. But if they are going to go after a quarterback, then they have to be a team who moves up. And part of that is if they're going after a quarterback, it probably means that they might be trading Ryan Tannehill, and they could get some draft capital and maybe use that capital to move up from the 11th pick into the top 5 and take a guy like Baker Mayfield, or maybe even a guy like Allen. So I think as far as that goes, if they're going to move up to take a quarterback, they probably will have the capital or will have the players in order to do it. So I wouldn't mind that from that standpoint. And it would almost be a trade of Tannehill for a guy like Mayfield. So I don't think that's a bad move. But if they do sit at 11, a guy like Edmonds, and then maybe a guy in the secondary, either Ward or Derwin James, are definitely the three major guys in play.
Yeah, for sure. And I will go back and say, you talked about how they're kind of key. I think they can definitely make the draft fun on opening night and make it interesting with the whole quarterback situation. So I think that would be fun because, last year I was not expecting Kansas City to move up that far and get Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. It'd be pretty awesome to see Miami move up from 11 to 3 and draft Allen, Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen, whatever, and get a quarterback, and that would be fun. And one last thing with that, if they do that, where does Ryan Tannehill go? Who do they trade him to?
I think a team.
Would it be Denver? Would it be?
It seemed like Denver could be in play.
It wouldn't be the Jets. There's no way they're going to trade him to the Jets or the Bills.
The Browns?
Could it be that would make sense as far as the fact that they have a ton of money. His cap wouldn't really affect him because I know they just paid him. So his cap wouldn't really affect them too much because they have some money.
They have an absurd amount of money. Can we talk about that real quick? The
110, right?
have like $113 million of cap space.
There's no reason. There's no way they can screw this up, right? They've got like 12 or 13 draft picks. They've got that much money. There's no way they can screw up picks 1 through 4 in the entire draft. They should be, with that alone, they should be like what, a 9 or 10 win team, right?
I mean, you would think they have 1, 4, 33, 35, 64, 65.
It's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. And then I'm trying to find what their cap. Oh, they have $108 million of cap space. $108 million. Like, do they have 4 guys signed on the whole roster? How is that possible? It's all guys on rookie deals right now. So it's like there's no. I agree. You would hope there's no way they could screw that up, but they probably will. But that is like, they have an absurd amount of money, so they could take a guy they could take Tannehill's contract on in a heartbeat and not skip a beat as far as their rebuild goes.
And actually maybe that's the way they do it. Maybe that's what they do. They go out and they get Ryan Tannehill. Maybe they sign AJ McCarron. They now have Tannehill, Kaiser, and McCarron. And at 1 and 4, they go Barkley and Chubb. And then they, the rest of the draft, they're just doing whatever the hell they want to do. And if
you're the Browns and the Dolphins offer you, let's say, pick 11 and Tannehill for pick 4.
Man, I saw that on the feed this week.
Right.
And, I don't know if me personally, I don't know if I would, but at the same time, I've got $108 million. My quarterback situation at that point would get better. It wouldn't get worse, but I just don't. Would Miami even do it? Like, you're giving up a guy at they would have to. I would think they're at their cap hit right now off a spot rack is negative $18 million. So they have to make some moves here. Their top 3 paid players, Ndamukong Suh at 26, Ryan Tannehill at almost 20, Jarvis Landry with the tag, the transition tag at 15.9, so basically $16 million. And they just added Robert Quinn at $11 million. So, and then they have Andre Branch at $10 million. What are they doing? What are these deals?
Yeah, so, I mean, and getting rid of Tannehill would, shutting that contract would get them under the cap, at least by a little bit, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's just a thought. And maybe they trade Jarvis Landry to the Browns. Maybe it's a package deal. Maybe it's Tannehill and Jarvis Landry and the 11th pick for pick 1. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm the Browns, I'd have to at least consider that. You immediately get a little bit better, and you still pick 4 and pick 11. You don't have to worry about taking a quarterback. I don't know. I don't expect that type of stuff to happen. But I think if a team is from outside the top 10 can move up into the top 5 to take a QB, the Dolphins are the obvious candidate, and a team that in the top 5 could move back to acquire more assets in the top 5. It's definitely the Browns. So I don't know. Maybe a deal gets worked out between the two teams.
Maybe. I mean, you never know. And it's not like where you think like, oh, well, 2 AFC teams aren't going to help each other. No, they do it all the time. I mean, look last year, Buffalo and Kansas City, they helped each other out, and that's what it is. And they've got to make a decision here somewhere. So I think trading Jarvis Landry is going to happen, because if that's the case, he wouldn't have signed the transition tag. He would have just signed the normal franchise tag. And at this point, I'm thinking, he's got to be looking at a deal somewhere. Do you think he potentially thinks of Baltimore as a landing spot?
I think Baltimore could definitely use him. I mean, I've touched on Jarvis Landry, and I think he's a talented player, but I think his usage is just so skewed, and he becomes this polarizing player because of how he's used. Mm-hmm. But I do think he is pretty talented, and he'd immediately be the best receiver on the Ravens, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
So the Ravens could definitely be in play. The Bears are going to obviously be in play, and those two teams are going to be looking at Sammy Watkins probably first in free agency, and maybe Jarvis Landry is more of a backup plan. But he's definitely in play, and I anticipate the Dolphins. I anticipate the Dolphins trading him for sure. For sure. Well, it'll be interesting to see. You're really getting ideas flowing in my head though now, and now I want to go back and edit the mock draft that I did this morning. But speaking of CoverOne.net, we've got content pushing all over the place. What do you got coming out potentially this week or next week? What are some things you're working on? I am currently working on a dual scouting report of Kiki Kuti and Dalen Cantrell, the Texas Tech wide receivers. Did a nice deep dive into their offense. I'm obsessed with Cliff Kingsbury officially. So I'm doing a scouting report on those two receivers, and I do want to just mention that I'm starting it off with some fire. I'll give a preview. I'll give a small preview on the podcast for the listeners, for our loyal fans. I'm mentioning, people forget this, I'm going to say, when Cliff Kingsbury arrived back in Lubbock, Texas, obviously there's a bunch of promise of high-powered offenses and stuff like that. His first game as a head coach, he started a little-known true freshman walk-on quarterback named. Do you have a name, Russ? Baker Mayfield.
I was going to say Baker Mayfield, right?
Yeah, people forget that. So that's kind of, let's start off with a little background on Cliff Kingsbury, and then get into a little scouting report of Kuti and Cantrell.
Nice, man. I'm looking forward to it. You've definitely put out some pretty good stuff over the last week for us on cover1.net. As for me, you can check out the post-combine edition mock draft. I promise you, it's pretty realistic. Got a mock trade in there. Got some sources in there. Guys that I've drank, Yinglings with. No big deal. And, we got 32 picks in there with some pretty good definitions, 5,700 words. So read it word for word and hate every second of it. Also, I promise the Dorrance Armstrong scouting report will be done this week. I procrastinated a little bit, and then I'll be working on some Colton Miller stuff. As I'm watching Colton Miller, I've been watching some Isaiah Oliver. So, we'll see what's going on. But be sure to check out cover1.net. We've got all kinds of stuff coming all the time. In-depth scouting reports where you actually put the clips in there. We break them down for you. We explain a little bit about what's happening. So it's always a good time on cover1.net. Brad, you got anything else for us?
I do not, man. Have a good night. Tomorrow is the start of the biggest tournament for the Providence Friars. I know every one of our listeners is officially a Friars fan.
No, they're not.
Full inform alongside me. They're playing Creighton. They need a win probably solidifies their entry into the NCAA tournament. A loss in Selection Sunday is going to be a pretty tense moment. So hopefully they go out and get a win. I know all of our fans are going to be rooting for them.
I will be rooting for them for the sake of you, but overall, I will not be rooting for them. I will be rooting for the Michigan State Spartans, who will let me down once again. So when you get your brackets ready on Sunday night, make sure that you think about it and do not put them any further than the Sweet 16, because I do not believe they're going any farther with that. Miles Bridges is the most overrated player in college basketball. He is.
How dare you?
He is Jabril Peppers of college sports right now. It's
How dare you again?
How dare I? I will go ahead and leave it at that. You guys enjoy your night, morning commute, whatever it is that you are doing. I am Russell Brown. That is Brad Kelly. This is Cover One, the podcast.